Another facet of the transition that I try to make for people to convert their properties to zero impact properties that don't demand food, water, and behave themselves. These are two Florida native plants. This one is called cocoa plum. This is Chrysobalanus ikeco, for those of you that want to look it up on the internet. Chrysobalanus, like chryso is in the butterfly, Chrysobalanous, I think, but don't quote me on that. It produces an edible fruit, so there's another feather in its cap right there. And it's fairly well behaved. It'll finish out at about 15 feet, but they don't resent pruning. This is a salt-tolerant native. We're about 200 yards from the ocean, so for this property, excellent choice. This is another one that's a native to Florida. It's called wild coffee. It's not related to the Cafe Arabica, which is the coffee plant that we all enjoy in the morning. This is Psychotria nervosa. So you'd almost think it's related to coffee with nervosa as the species. But this is another native. It can be kept as a shrub. It does tend to run away. It likes to reproduce rhizomially or underground. I don't think it uses rhizomes, but it does reproduce underground. But it's another good choice for a drought-tolerant native that doesn't demand fertilizer, doesn't demand high amounts of pest control at all. As a matter of fact, I can't think of anything right now that predates either of these species, which is why they're successful in their natives, because they've endured the benchmarks, the droughts, the fire community, the insects, the pathogens that live in this area. So this is a good example of two native plants for Florida. And wherever you are, if you know, if there's native plants that people are touting as being superlative in some of the things that I was mentioning, low demands, that's the logical choice to give yourself that ability to be a closed circuit yard and a closed environment yard where you're not piping in food, you're not necessarily piping in a lot of water unless it's a transplant situation. So that's a prime example. If you want to swing around real quick, another couple of examples for our area in Indian River County, Florida, but again it translates anywhere around the world, for native plants. And I'm not a strict nativist. I encourage plants that are in the savannas of Brazil or in South Africa rather, that go through a similar climatic pattern that we do. But my first thought is to always try to stick with natives, because invasive issues can occur with some of these other plants, but then there are plants that come from those areas that behave very well here. This is another native. This is Coccolobus uvifera, I think, and this is a sea grape. And it's cold sensitive, but it's an excellent dune specimen. It really holds a lot of our dunes together here in Florida, as did the cocoa plum. That's another good dune plant. This is very salt tolerant, drought tolerant. It produces an edible berry. It's kind of a subject to taste kind of berry, but it's a grape. That's why they call it sea grape. It's tasty in my opinion. And then over here we have silver buttonwood, which is another native. Very salt tolerant. Does well. It's another xeriscape candidate. It will perform well. This one has been defoliated by the terrible weather we've had recently. Just about everything has been tested by this winter of 2009, 2010. Been a real hard winter for Central Florida, but this thing's going to come back and be glorious. But it meets all the criteria of a xeriscapist, a salt zone, which is right where we are right now. We're about 150 yards from the beach. So this is another one, and I'm not sure the genus and species, but silver buttonwood on this